aka Kung Fu Kenny, better known as King Kendrick Lamar, as you know, is a Compton-born hip-hop artist known for his legendary contribution to both music and culture over the last decade with his string of just untouchable albums. We're talking Section 80, Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, Untitled and Mastered. I mean, these are albums that have established Kendrick as arguably one of the greatest rappers of all time. In fact, not just rapper of all time, but I would argue that Kendrick is currently competing for his spot as one of the greatest artists of all time. And I think he has the momentum and the potential to reach that level. Because Kendrick has just established a standard that no one right now can come close to, whether we're talking lyrically, conceptually, cadence-wise, or in terms of his impact and influence on culture. His music has just spoken to an entire generation while simultaneously being appreciated and respected by the generations that preceded him. Now, this new album, Damn, is just another chapter in the story of Kendrick's legacy that has been conceptualized in a very thought-out way, bringing fans back to the more traditional hip-hop model of albums like Section 80 and Good Kid, Mad City that really gives the fans what they wanted to see from this album, even if they did not know they wanted it. Now, when I say this, what I mean is that Kendrick's last two albums, Untitled and Pimp a Butterfly, explore different, less mainstream hip-hop avenues, merging jazz fusion with the trap music, mixing black soul with some rock and roll, showing that they'll never box him in because he's David Blaine in all you heard. Now, this project shows that he's not even boxing himself in. And what I mean by that is that he is able to put out whatever kind of album he wants to, just like this new one, for example. Now, Damn, while feeling like a more conventional contemporary collection of songs, is still able to carry out a really creative concept and weave it into the songwriting in such a way that is providing such an interesting and introspective, honest reflection on the summation of all the emotions, expressions, and experiences that have brought Kendrick to where he stands right now, as one of the most admired men alive. But, as often with life, it's been the most difficult emotions, expressions, and experiences that have inspired the dedication to action necessary to reach that level that Kendrick has attained. Now, this album explores how the different factors of Kendrick's life have contributed to who he is now, from the first few songs, Blood, DNA, and Element, to the last few songs, Fear, God, and Duckworthy, which is Kendrick's family name, by the way, if you were unsure. Now, this is such a solid and introspective concept for this album to be built upon, as it allows the listener to share in Kendrick's life experience and see all the sides of Kendrick that we have yet to see so plainly laid out, such as his fear and his courage. Now, Damn features some of, if not the best hip-hop production that we have seen from a Kendrick album, that's in my opinion. Because, as I said previously, the last two albums featured less traditional hip-hop production and far more live composition. And this album contains some really remarkable beats, such as the heavily trap-influenced song DNA, as well as the playfully arranged track Humble that has just been completely stuck in my head since the single dropped, which you can see my full review of here, by the way. Now, the production on this thing is just so tight, and it lends itself so well to the concept and the delivery of this album. But that's one of the things that Kendrick and TDE do the best, and that's bring the right people to the table when making their music. Not the most obvious contributors, but the most appropriate. Now that's true artistry, if you ask me, where the art and only the art comes first. Now, speaking of contributors, Kendrick has a fair few contributors that really surprised me, including Rihanna, Zakari, and U2, which has to be one of the most unexpected but unbelievable collaborations in hip-hop since Run DMC met with Aerosmith. Now, each feature on this album adds their own particular way of contributing to this album, whether it's Rihanna's beautiful background vocals on the song Loyalty that provides support to Kendrick's more relaxed delivery, or the subtly complex production contribution of Bad Bad Not Good on the song Lust that creates a real atmosphere of doubt, disorientation, and distraction. No matter the contributor, they always add to the songs in a way that feels that it supports the concept and the feel of not only the individual song, but the overarching concept behind this masterpiece of an album. Now, if I had to name my kind of favourite song for this album right now anyway, I would probably have to go with firstly the single Humble, as this song is just key to the narrative in the album, and it represents a real shift in the story of Kendrick's origins, as well as just having some of my favourite composition and production from the album. Next, I would say DNA. I just love how hard this song goes, from the production to Kendrick's raw and unstoppable cadence that just flows and flows for days. Finally, I have to say Triple X, that features U2, as it's just got such an airy atmosphere to it whilst exploring the American dream and how intoxicating the effect of chasing it can be. Now, XX also has a different perspective on gun control. That's one of showing the kind of contradictions inherent in the argument, where people preach peace while simultaneously knowing that peace has its limits. Now, this really reminds me of some of the lyrics from Kendrick's song High Power that go, visions of Martin Luther staring at me. If he's seen it how I seen it, that would make my parents happy. Sorry, mama, I can't turn the other cheek. They want to knock me off the edge like a fucking widow peak. Now, this is demonstrating that while in an ideal world we could live in complete peace, but this is not an ideal world, and life is very complicated. Now, I would love to have the time to talk about each song in more depth on this album. In fact, I might do, whether I return for another episode of Rambling Reviews or if I bring out a more comprehensive article down the line. So stick around for them, but for right now, I do want to tie up this episode by going over the concept for this album and how each song contributes in a particular way to the narrative encoded in this album. Now, I feel that this is an album that's really just too complex to say anything for sure, certainly not right now. And there's been a ton of speculation about how it can be looked about in different ways or, from different perspectives. For example, there's an argument by this YouTube channel called Brill Boy, whose video I will be linking in the description, as it offers a more comprehensive exploration of this idea, which is that there is a different track order to listen to this album to, and this is really interesting for a start, but it links to the anagram found on the last letters of each song found sectioned off on the back of this album that some believe spells out the term Earth led to death, but these guys are arguing that it actually means Dead as My Nation, suggesting that the album is actually about exploring the makeup of America and how the powers conceptualize our reality and control our zeitgeist. And this is an idea that's far too fascinating for me not to mention this video. I mean, it's such an interesting idea behind this album, and it really does change how you can interpret the message behind the music. However, as I said, for right now, there's nothing set in stone. It could just as easily be that this album is just straightforward, which is what a lot of people are kind of looking for it not to be. But this album still tells a very interesting story as it explores what has led Kendrick to right now and what he sees when he looks at the makeup of the matrix of our society and how we are kind of contained by the lens of our own perception and how actions made down the line determine our destiny. For example, with the song Duckworth that tells the story of how Top Dog, Kendrick's manager and mentor, almost once murdered Kendrick's dad, but fate decided to shine in a different way that determined a whole new path for Kendrick, a path that has led into this album. Damn is a remarkable album that shines in its own unique way, both in terms of its place in Kendrick's body of work, but also in terms of who Kendrick is as a man, which is what comes first and foremost. This album has offered a more honest reflection on who Kendrick Lamar is, almost how Good Kid, Mad City demonstrated who he was. Kendrick has once again surpassed all expectations, smashed all records, and changed the landscape of music, all while offering the world a new way to view and appreciate humanity and this game of life, showing that it's more of a story than a game. So read on and don't lose your place. And on that note, I'm going to have to finish up this review with my recommended listening for this week's episode of Rambling Reviews. Basically just a list of songs that complement this album, if it needs any complimenting. But starting off with Alexis by Freddie Gibbs, Rockabye Baby by Joey Badass featuring Schoolboy Q, and last but not least, High Power by King Kendrick Lamar. So thank you for joining me, Carl Mason, for another Mason's Music Library production, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I would really appreciate if you subscribe to this channel. Also check us out on social media, all linked in the info box below, the description box. And whilst you're at it, I would love to hear what you have to say about this album, so why not tell me what you think in the comment section. Cheers, and I'll see you in the next video.